All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Unleash the Power of Hybrid Cloud AI with Nutanix and Red Hat. Now, today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Nutanix and Red Hat and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm so happy that I get to be here to be your moderator for this webinar because I, like many of you, cannot get enough of the conversations around AI and ML. There is just so much to consider. There's so many possible applications. There's really interesting challenges and really, truly exciting opportunities. And today we are exploring MLOps, which is becoming absolutely critical for many of our organizations, and especially focusing on that hybrid approach. Now, these highly complex practices and projects can require a lot of planning. They can be full of intricacies, but the opportunities for scalability, flexibility, and increased security and reliability, all the illities, right? All the best illities are just incredible. And today we get to talk with two top experts who will help us understand how an innovative partnership between Red Hat and Nutanix can help you navigate this new AI-driven world and create the best technology stack for hybrid cloud. I cannot wait to get started on our chat today. We have so much to explore, so I'm going to zip through a few housekeeping points that will help you get the most out of your day here with us, and then we'll get this show on the road. Let's start by taking a little bit of a guided tour of your audience console. I want to start you out in your question section because really this is the most important part of our discussion today. This is the best way to reach out, to connect with our speakers. We actually have some polls that we're going to start out with you in just a second. And this questions window, these are going to be how you can let the speakers know where you want to go with this conversation. Because as we said, these are often very complex and layered. And so our speakers are going to tailor the information to what you are asking, what you're identifying in those polls and through that questions window. So make sure you're getting those questions in. Everything that's rolling around in your brain, we absolutely want to hear from you today. Now, you can give it a little test run right now if you haven't already done so. Say hi, say hello, let us know how you're doing. Post a little shout out in the window there. I'm going to say hi to Patrick and Jeffrey and Maria. We've got Zhang and Jorge and Richard and Reg. We've got a whole awesome crew with us. Keep those highs and hellos coming in. We want to hear from you as we go through our day. Now, that questions window is also going to be the best place to let us know if you are having any technical issues. Hopefully that doesn't come up. We all know this little tech gremlins get out every once in a while. So if they've got a hold of you, the first thing you're going to try is a browser refresh. That will generally clear out the gremlins. But if somebody fed them after midnight and they're really clinging on today, no problem. You're going to post a message in the questions window, let us know, and we will be there to help you out. All right, so that's the questions window. Next stop on our little guided tour, we're going to hang out in the handouts tab. So click in there now, start exploring because there's some fantastic handouts and takeaways that you are going to want to spend some time with once we wrap this webinar. So go explore that. Open those tabs, open them right now. Make sure you've got them open. Don't go too far away from us though yet because we've got a whole awesome webinar coming up ahead of us. But as soon as we wrap that webinar, you're going to want to come back to them. So open the tabs now, hold on to them, save them for later, stay with us, and then go explore those once we wrap up here. Now, it's not just awesome content that we are giving away today. We also have a $250 Amazon gift card that will go to someone who is here in live attendance at the webinar. And that special lucky someone must also meet the Actual Tech Media Prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those terms and conditions are, no problem. We have them linked for you right in that handouts tab that we were just chatting about. So you can click over there and find the full T's and C's waiting for you. All right, well, speaking of cool prizes, now I can already tell that this group is not going to need a lot of incentive to ask questions, especially with a topic like AI and ML. There's a lot to explore, but we have it for you anyways because we're just wonderful like that. So we have a $50 Amazon gift card going to the best question asked. The best question asked. Now, here's the kicker with this. Even if your question does not get asked or answered live, you are still entered to win. So just by getting that question in, you are entered to win that best question gift card. So keep those questions coming in as we go through our day today. Once we wrap up our session, we will review all the questions asked, and then we will get in touch and reach out to that best question gift card. And I can tell you already the competition is going to be pretty fierce today. All right, well, that is all we've got for introduction. I think it's time that we get the show on the road because as you can see, we have an incredible dynamic duo waiting in the wings for us, and I am so excited to jump into this conversation. So let me introduce you all to our incredible guest speakers here with us today, Matthew Miller, Senior Principal Chief Architect at Red Hat, and Mike Barman, Product Marketing, AI, Networking, and Security at Nutanix. Matthew and Mike are wonderful dynamic duo, the Rockstar crew. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm very excited to chat with you.
Thank you for going through and having us. It's definitely a fun time, actually, within the industry to be talking about these specific topics.
I totally echo Matthew's sentiments. So let's get into it.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're going to start out by kicking it around to the audience and do a little bit of a temperature check. Where is everybody at? So we're wondering about the current status of your AI journey, and what are you guys kind of expecting to see? Where are most people that you hear from in this journey path?
What do you think, Matthew?
So, there's a lot of people that today have gone through and have started experimenting with generative AI. ChatGPT's made things really popular. I don't think anybody's gone through and actually not, ask them to write them an email or do something like that. And of course, like within the coding space, you have things like Mistral and Llama. It's definitely a great time. And just within the last year, things have really changed. I mean, stuff that like we really were doing on proprietary exotic hardware is now being done on laptops and smaller server grade systems. So it's really the models themselves are getting much smaller, and we're seeing this levels of experimentation out there. It's definitely one where people are seeing the possibilities and how it can go through and adapt their businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like our pollers are echoing your sentiments, right? Looks like we're at 61%. Have no specific use case yet, but they're exploring it, which I think that's kind of in line with what I'm thinking, right? It's AI is interesting when it comes to business. It becomes even more interesting to figure out where it fits. What do you think, Matthew?
No, I completely agree. And one of the things that organizations are concerned about, especially going through the mechanics of adoption, is how do I go through and adopt something like AI ML safely? Am I supposed to just go through and start feeding my information into a third-party based service? And like you see the horror stories about proprietary data and code getting leaked out, and nobody wants that to specifically happen to them within the constructs of their environment. So, with that, it's like, how do I go through and create an environment where I can go through and experiment and have that iterative based experiment, but not subject myself to all of the different mechanics of bringing my data someplace that I've got to read lots of T's and C's, as just kind of talked about earlier, to be able to ensure that I'm not leaking something.
Totally.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Go ahead, Jess, please. Jump
no,
right
I was just going to say, I put up a new poll for you, so I'm switching on you. Because you're right, I think there's both of you mentioned sort of the early adoption and the early phases of things, and there are challenges to what you don't know, right? And LLMs maybe have been one area that people have felt a little more confident jumping in. So curious to see if you think, we were at about 60%. We're sort of in the we like AI, but we don't know exactly how. Do you anticipate that we're going to see maybe those that are starting with LLMs, or where do you kind of see that fitting into the conversation?
So
go ahead, Matthew, take a stab at it.
Yes. So where I kind of see is, and most people don't particularly realize this, is it is, and this is going to be very controversial, it is not hard for a developer to get started with pre-built models. It is utilizing things that they're comfortable with, like APIs and tokens, to be able to go through and pull from external sources and be able to do that first part of experimentation. But that in itself doesn't actually turn itself into direct value, because like the things that we're still seeing is it takes about 7 to 12 months to really get something into production. And that's a really hard thing. And the reason that's occurring is just because you've gone through and connected to a third-party based service. It hasn't been fed your data. It hasn't been fine-tuned. It hasn't been adjusted. And do you have all those parts to iterate the experiment? So Mike, what are your thoughts?
I love that answer.
We're giving a +1 to Matthew on that one. Nice job. Well, I think that's a great place to start this out. And I know that you guys are really going to unpack quite a bit of this. I can see some questions rolling in already. So you've already sparked the audience. I'm going to step back and just let you guys run with it. And I can't wait to hear where we go next.
Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it. No, and I think the biggest information that I'm gathering here based on our initial polls to what you out there are talking about is, we're not quite sure what the use case is. We know how to spell AI, and LLMs. We're bordering on getting used to that, but we're not quite sure. And I think that's really the tone that I'm feeling like most businesses out there are at. So let's keep going here. Let's jump to the next slide, and let's figure out exactly what we're going to jump into here. Matthew, any further thoughts before we move on?
No, I think it's a great place to go through. Let's jump right in.
Cool. Awesome. So look, I think Gen AI, right, is now the most frequently deployed solution in most organizations, and I use that loosely, right, because we all know that Gen AI, as our people out there showed, Matthew, is one of those things where we're not quite sure what the right fit is, right? I think a lot of executives are getting what I call airport syndrome, right? You remember back in the day when they had those big Barracuda posters inside the airport, and you get a call from CEO, are we using Barracuda? You're like, well, hold on. So I think Gen AI is really falls along to that. So I definitely think that it's getting deployed, but what is the value? That's tough. Matthew, have you talked to anyone or gotten a succinct kind of idea on what really the top value is that you're seeing from generative AI as it's deployed right now?
So the places that we're seeing people initially go through the adoption set is doing things like augmented AI to be able to go through and enable their workers faster, chatbots to be able to go through and interact and create some type of personal exchange with an end user and end customer. The mechanics of going through and perusing lots of large data sets to be able to provide some results around the fact that, like, I think we're all feeling that crushing amount of data that we're consuming on a daily basis. And like AI does have a way about going through and pulling some of that together to make it easier to go through and look at and provide you with source material that you can validate specifically what you're seeing. Those are the use cases that I'm feeling, but like it's a decades old field. So, and while generative AI is popular today, it's been around for a very long time. It's just become available to the masses.
Got it. Well, that's interesting, because I think as we go into the next kind of round of information here, we're talking about the top AI trends. And I'll build these out here, but essentially at Nutanix, we kind of took a poll of our customers, right? A lot of the Red Hat customers are Nutanix users at the same time. And there's three key areas that we're seeing here, right? And you kind of echoed this already, which is, a large majority consider AI a priority. They know the infrastructure, right? Their mechanisms of deploying it have to be improved. And they need a plan to increase how the edge of AI works, right? I think AI, in my opinion, has made hardware hot again in terms of that, and has made the edge super relevant again. It's not just a public cloud anymore. It's how do you manage this across everything? Are you kind of hearing the same thing in the Red Hat world?
No, I completely agree. It's definitely one that what we're seeing today is, as I said earlier, that capability to go through and utilize it day to day at the executive levels have made it more popular in going through and exploring the art of the possible.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, and I think that's really where it comes down to the next piece, which is, we heard this from our pollers out there. Where do you start, right? And I think from you and me kind of know that secret sauce, right? It's that right platform. It's the right combination of hardware and data management and Gen AI deployment and Gen AI management that really makes it work. This hybrid multi-cloud world, right? Using multiple areas from the edge to your private clouds, to your data centers, to public clouds with an S, right? This hybrid multi-cloud becomes critical. And I think that's where, Matthew, our combined solution really takes flight. And again, for all of you out there, we're developing this as we speak to make sure it fits. But at the end of the day, the easy button is Nutanix provides the platform for hardware and data management. Matthew, you guys at Red Hat provide all the AI goodness to make it tick. Have any comments on this?
No, absolutely. It's one where we're in a world, especially where customers want to be able to go through it and move around not just the models, but the capability, cloud to data center, cloud to edge, data center to edge. And they want to have that consistent control plane all the way across. And really, what Red Hat looks at it as is we're taking, what data scientists knows, what is the language of models and like MLOps, and we're bringing developers who know DevOps, and we're giving them like one unified platform to be able to work on top of. And then that goes through and lives on a secure platform that they can go through and then get access to their data. So, and we really see that access to data as key critical to the experimentation components. And one of the other parts that is key critical is, when you're doing everything through a service, there's initial costs, there's subscription costs. And as I said, developers are playing with tokens, and those tokens aren't free. So every time you go through and hit a query, it's like getting paying for a drink at a restaurant, but you're paying by the sip. And you don't know at the end of the day what that looks like in production. So going through and be able to experiment locally and see what that feels like, and having access to your real data is one that we see as a part of going through and really getting models into production.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, hey, look, maybe it's now time that I kind of turn it over to you, right? I think we both kind of set the stage. Do you want to talk more about how Red Hat kind of makes the Gen AI piece of this tick? Let's zoom in on this red part, and you can take it away. So let's jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
So the part that I think is super interesting right now is there's a mechanic to going through and operationalizing things like AML, and it's not particularly trivial. We focus on the developing model component side, but that's only one really small part, because there's other parts that people have to go through and specifically consider, the ideation and the prototyping is followed by the building and refining, and really the operationalizing is where it's going to live the majority. So if you go through to develop a model and you're actually able to get it into production, 95% of its life is going to be on the platform, and it's going to be in the inferencing stage, and it's going to be producing productivity sets. So you have to be able to go through and set the cost barriers for not just the experimentation, but what does it cost to specifically deploy? And all of these people need to be working together, because models are like fruit, they rot. They're not, and you're going to be having to constantly be iterating to be able to go through and get the mechanics of value. So it has to be an inherent cohesive team to make it, one of those parts. And we think that the platform pieces and bringing developers together and the data scientists together into one area where they accelerate each other versus the mechanics of what we saw throw across the wall of years past. So we're hoping that true MLOps will move us away from that, where you'll just, here's our new model, and it's, pitched into, across, and then people are seeing not what they expect.
Well, and I think to add to that really quickly, I think, you talk about Meta's latest release, right? They just, there's all these constant releases of hey, this company put out this large language model, you guys should use it, right? To your point, the iterative nature becomes hard to manage. I know one of the questions we had just in the chat, Matthew, based on what you said was, attention to the edge with AI. Can you dig into that a little bit with what you mentioned with the triviality of that?
So the attention to the edge is going through and understanding that the development of a model really is going to have multiple life cycle sets. And really, when you think about the components of the edge, you want to be able to go through and best utilize the hardware that you currently have available to you, and things like GPUs, they're not inexpensive. So you need to be able to go through and create components that not only fulfill the needs of what happens on these large 4-way, 8-way servers, but when the model specifically created actually can go through and run at the edge. So it's a two-part experimentation component, because it really becomes important to not just get the answer you want, but to be able to get the answer running on the footprint that you hope to be. So going through and having that consistent platform all the way across goes through and simplifies the variables and going through and getting to that edge use case.
Oh man, thank you for that. I think Lionel Roberts, who asked that, one of our great attendees out there, thank you for that. I think that's a great answer. All right, I know there's another question here about security and governance. We'll probably get to that in just a bit, so I don't want to spoil things, but tell us what you got here in the portfolio strategy. I think this looks really interesting.
Yeah, no. So in the conversation of AI, it is a really vast, broad set of things. And we were going to answer these in different ways that are both going to include what we consider to be core Red Hat values, and then things that you need to be consider to deploy. So like, what is our AI portfolio strategy? Red Hat strategy has been utilized the concept of open. And like, everybody knows us for open source, but like, we really are focused heavily on open data and open models. So like, at our summit this year, we went through and we showcased and brought the, with IBM Research, the Granite family of models out there with licensing to be able to go through and showcase a way for you to start this set of experimentation. And one of the things behind the mechanics of governance is, how do you go through and do something like contributions in the field of AI, because there's not a way to contribute to a model. So, like, you've got all of this great work, but like the layers of fine tuning that can be happening across an organization, how do I contribute that back to a larger group? So like, we're going through and doing a lot of research into what we call Instruct Lab, which provides open taxonomies to be able to go through and have anybody be able to contribute into model sets. And then, we focus heavily on the mechanics of platform to do developing and tubing, serving and monitoring, MLOps and resource management. And then things like governance. Government sees a lot of things in AI. And, we go through and meet it within certain aspects, and we've got partners that take it to the next level. That's almost an entire webinar that we could do on the mechanics of governance. But security has been a foundation of Red Hat for years. And it's really like what our focus is, to be able to go through and provide you a way to bring, the parts of AI into your environments where it's behind your wall. And behind the wall is like, we know that's the safest place for the experimentation. So, we're doing, AI-enabled portfolio, AI-enabled workloads, platform, and models. So we're hoping to do open across the board, and really like strong platforms is where we know that like meeting our customers where they are on their platform is the important part, and being able to go through and optimize the hardware that they have is like also important.
Awesome.
So I think we've got another poll here.
We do. So it looks like, what are the challenges? And I know we're taking into account, we promise you out there, your previous poll questions, and Matthew and I are looking at this and say, what are the challenges you're facing today with AI? Matthew, if you had to guess, what would be the largest challenge? I know they're coming in already, but what do you think?
So the largest challenge that I see organizations taking on is that AI is one of those established fields that has been around for a rather long period of time, and it has a rather unique set of talents and skills. But this popularization of AI has now created a gold rush towards this adoption of AI at scale. And we are at that point within an industry where we're starting to bring those people out of school and ramp up our core parts of developers to be able to deliver on the mechanics of AI. But it really is, how do I get access to the hardware to do experimentation? How do I make my developers successful so I don't need a full-on data scientist for everything that I need? And when do I need to know when I'm actually in a much deeper field of AI and model sets, where I'm doing things like machine vision, where I'm going to have to go through and have teams of people, or I have a chat bot where I may be able to get away with a few sets of developers to be able to get started with prototyping.
Yeah, totally. I think that echoes what we're seeing here, which is the two biggest, outcomes of this is limited AI knowledge and data privacy concerns. You nailed it, right? And I think we're seeing the same thing on the Nutanix side, where we're talking with customers, right? Our typical, I think, engagement is starting with teams that have been given an edict, a credo, a goal, right, by executives to say, go put in Gen AI. And they're like, I think I know what you want, but I'm not quite sure. And I think up leveling, to your point, those skill sets with the combination of Nutanix and Red Hat is just something we can absolutely do. So awesome. Any other comments on this before we go on? Oh yeah.
No. Controlling the data is really probably the quintessential part of being able to go through and really trust what you're doing in the space of AI. If you take a look at like all the different laws that are occurring through Europe today, and then the laws that have been just recently passed within California, I go through and something gets trained into our model, and that is supposed to be data that is expired out. but how long does it live in that model, and how do I determine that it's specifically there? If I don't have control of the life cycle, or it gets pre-trained into something else, where deep learning models pull that data that was once mine and distribute it forward. What is my liability? I think that full end-to-end control is what customers are looking to be able to go through and do. And we see like owning the entire aspect of the life cycle and providing a level of data sovereignty as the way to get started with that.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out, right? The old adage.
Yeah, there's definitely garbage in, right? Garbage out. So what is the OpenShift AI platform? It is an area where we can do that like deep set of model development, and that's anywhere from edge to data center to cloud. And the goal specifically within there is to be able to go through and allow you to take that hardware or those cloud-based services that are really important to you and be able to get them to the resources that are specifically needed in such a way that they, after like my work is done, if I'm going through and building, it scales down to zero and gets that resource to somebody else. Because some of these cards are not only rare, and when you get them, you need to be able to share them across the organization, because it's definitely one that you do not want to have something sitting in the corner as one person's area of experimentation. And one of the things I kind of talked to sooner is like there's this concept of like AI as a subscription, but isn't it like one of those things where the concept of developing best practices is about iteration? And do you want to be doing that by the drink? So the model serving capability where I can locally bring that model to myself within my own area and have control over it, that is like one of those parts it's really going to allow you to close that gap to be able to bring a model specifically into production, because you can put that time into it without having to worry about going through and being hit with runaway costs. And from somebody who's been hit by runaway costs, it's definitely one of those ones that you want to have that deep level of control.
You left an AWS EC2 instance on for a whole month too?
No, it's not that specific one, but no, I've definitely bare metal hardware. It doesn't take very long to be able to go through it and bring those cost pieces up when you need it for certain things. And life cycle management areas is like really the part that's going to bring the two sets of teams together, because in the past there's this concept of like I can develop alone, but you really can't have that when somebody wants governance and they want transparency and they want the capability to see it, providing those full sets of pipelines where you're not having to go through and you're able to repeat the mechanics of the outcome is what people are looking to do. And they want to be able to build those intelligent applications, or they want to be able to build those AI infused applications. And I'm seeing that people are starting off with like AI infused, take what I have and add AI. And then like starting to plan what does intelligent applications look like within their environments.
Totally.
And this kind of gets to what we consider the part that what Red Hat heavily focuses on, in that it is a large partner ecosystem that makes us successful. And going through and having the conversations today is going through and helping meet our customers where they are, and to be able to say, this is a safe platform to be able to start your building capability that is going to be able to take you anywhere from edge to cloud, and is going to provide you the mechanics to be able to do those levels of experimentation. And OpenShift AI provides you frameworks and tooling to be able to go through and do that, like baseline set model serving, but it also provides you a catalog of ISV partners that you can also interact with that sit above the platform to do those other contributing pieces, because AI is not all about just the running of the model. It is also about going through and infusing the data as I need it to be able to make it exactly what you specifically want. So, having those things that you need is bringing the data in, having things like object store so that I can do the storage of those models like within my environment, and being able to share things like GPUs. These are really what's going to make an organization successful, because that dance of being able to go through and have a blend of experimentation on limited hardware, but going through and enabling as many people so that you can develop your own set of best practices is really what we consider to be particularly important.
Totally agree.
So I think I want to bring it back to you, Mike, to really go through and kind of describe what's below the platform, because I've kind of inferred what's there, and a little quip on the inference. But tell us a little bit about like GPT in a box.
You're such a punny guy. No, and I agree. I think it's very relevant. And look, at the end of the day, Red Hat is such an amazing partner. You've really given us the ability, and given customers more particularly the ability for AI choice, right? And I think being able to adapt these days, Matthew, is so critical in the AI space, right? Things change literally overnight. You've got to be able to adapt and move. And the combination of Red Hat plus Nutanix enables that from, to your point, from the edge to cloud. So where does Nutanix fit in? So in the light purple there, you can see on your screen, we provide what is essentially platform as a service internally for your own data center for Red Hat. So we provide all the hardware, right? And the management and the data management and a lot of the data security to be able, for you to be able to run your OpenShift AI and your OpenShift Kubernetes platform very securely and very efficiently, and allows you to scale out. I know that one of the real tough things that a lot of customers have out there these days is, hey, the cloud's easy. I put in a credit card, I get whatever I want. I can't do that on-prem. I think one of the unique things that Nutanix and Red Hat add is that cloud-like flexibility to be able to do that, right? Start with what you need today, like Lego blocks, right, in terms of hardware. And as it scales out, it could be GPUs, it could be servers, right? It could be whatever you need. Our hyper-converged systems, which is the compute, the networking, the storage, all together in one platform, allows you to scale out like Lego blocks and add what you need when you need it, so you're not overpaying. And then the OpenShift AI piece just rolls right on top of that. That becomes your AI management plane for all your different things. And together, you have a secure, flexible, and quickly scalable platform to deploy Gen AI right now, not tomorrow, but right now, and adapt when needed. So that's what we do together. That's the sum up. So yeah, that was a great lead, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and really it is all about getting the right resources that are currently out within there, being able to get access to those GPUs that all the organizations specifically need, and the attention to the edge. There's that question out there. The attention to the edge is, what can that footprint look like, scaled out or scaled down? And really a true software-oriented solution does provide those capabilities to not only create it, but actually be utilized as the engine for inferencing.
Absolutely. Right. What's next? Such good info. I think all of our people are
right.
Oh, there we go.
So, when we talk about like the different parts of going through and having this mechanics of flexible edge, you have the underlying core, whether that's in the data center or that's in the cloud, that is actually going through and training models. And, really organizations today are limited by the fact that really we're not seeing a lot of like larger set model generation. And, it takes a huge amount of effort to actually create your first model. What we're seeing is kind of this concept of prompt-based tuning or fine-tuning existing models to be able to go through and be trained with your sets of data to be able to go through and bring it to something that we consider usable for the mechanics of business. And really organizations are having to make the decision, like, what does this investment look like, for the most value that I'm getting from the organization side? And it's not just about like the training component. It is definitely one where you need to be able to bring whatever you create to that far edge where it's actually being served, to the device that it could actually go through and be pulling in the data so that it can be highly iterated. The goal is to be able to have an area to get the highest level of telemetry and understand that it's not just about the model. It's also going through and meeting the data where it's at and being able to update it so that you have that fine-tuned capabilities. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'll add something quickly there. I mean, this is where, again, I think the edge aspect of where Red Hat and Nutanix play are so critical, right? Nutanix can provide the footprint that you need in any of those facets, all the way to the smallest edge, right? Under a desk, right? In an industry location where there's a very small footprint, all the way up to the data center level. And to your point, being able to manage that holistically with what you need is so critical. So yeah, absolutely. It's a great combo.
Yeah, and you're looking to be able to go through and support like a complete different variety of use cases. And like when we have data scientists in the room, you start getting into the concept of logical regression and linear regression and some of these specific industry-based techniques. But really what like customers at the business layer are attempting to do is understand fundamentally, how do I get the largest ROI for my investment? How do I not fall behind what my competition is certainly doing within the environment? And how do I be able to go through and maximize my workforce? And that maximization of workforce is like where we're seeing it. Well, think about it. If you can go through and take your first steps as being able to take those data sources that you specifically have and help upskill new onboarded people by being able to ask questions into an environment, this like just that set of interactions reduces the amount of time to onboard people into large complex environments. And these are the types of things that we see. And like one of the things that Red Hat did is like we started with the mechanics of taking our product lines and like helping our customers adopt it with AI. You're seeing that with things like Ansible Lightspeed, and we announced OpenShift Lightspeed, and soon there'll be RHEL Lightspeed. But these areas to provide this augmented AI we see as highly important to success, and this is going to be driven by aligning to the footprints that organizations specifically trust and being able to go through and have access to the mechanics of the data where it specifically sits. It sounds great to say, I'm going to take all of my stuff and shove it to the cloud, but it is not, it is not a realistic part to be able to do, to be able to go through. And with that, you're going to want to do things in those environments, but there's going to be that sensitive component that you may not want to be able to go through and move to those areas. And we're providing that agnostic control plane across all the different cloud providers to the mechanics of what's specifically on premise. And we see that as one of those things that our customers want to have the capability. So reducing the learning, helping with going through and bringing the mechanics of the models forward, helping with the operationalization, and creating that culture where data scientists and developers can work together. Because developers are definitely one where this concept of API plus token, like they're ready to adopt as fast as they can. And really it's like, how do I get the appropriate results back as quickly as I can?
No, and I think that echoes what Jonathan Spicer said, as a question that we kind of hit on early on. We've kind of been interweaving it, which is his question about the security and governance of LLM models. Right? We're talking about it, right? How difficult it is, to your point, from edge to cloud. And the concepts you're talking about are absolutely key to accelerate not only the deployment, but also the security. So I love that. It's a great call out.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, like, what is it like when we're going through it and we're talking like, the concepts of OpenShift AI? It's being able to go through and provide an area where you can serve models forward. It's so I can go through and I can get a model from something like a Hugging Face, and I can deploy it specifically on top of my platform. And there's just those significant amount of advantages that you can do when you control a model end to end versus utilizing just a third party set model. We're providing the mechanics of the frameworks that developers like to work with to be able to go through and interact with models for themselves. And then there's these like out of the box capabilities that we're going through and doing to assist with the ops components, plus going through and providing an ecosystem that you can go through and scale it out. Red Hat's done a lot of work going through and bringing Kser forward, custom pieces of PyTorch, connections into Hugging Face. These are things that you'll find specifically within the mechanics of the platform so that you can train or do things like fine tuning. And really what we see when we talk to organizations is that the first conversation is really about expectations of like, what is it that you dream you can do? What is it that you hope that you could do? Where are your security people the most comfortable? And what is your event horizon? And then we try to work it backwards to be able to go through and create those levels of experimentation so that you can go through and see those quick successes with the understanding that a few years ago, I used to talk to the fact that like 1 out of every 10 models, made it to production. And we're seeing that now that you have such a multitude of models, it's not just that, like you go through and then you're going to want to train it on others because there's this latest, more accurate set. Am I getting that? So there's a lot to be able to go through for organizations to kind of think about. And being an open company, we're going through and providing it in such a way that like you can bring your model to the platform, or you can start utilizing a set of open models that we're going through and specifically providing. And that's really what we see as like a key part of being able to go through and be successful. And we wanted to be able to show, one of the things is we wanted to make it simple for people to go through and adopt. When you're on top of the platform, like how do I get the quickest way to be able to get to scaling and serving for the mechanics of my experimentation? How do I set the frameworks that I specifically want? What do my deployed model fleet endpoints go through and look like? The things that you would go through from an experimentation perspective, be able to go through and want. And then it comes to things like high integrations with the platform. And I know that's something we've done heavily with Nutanix. Is it's not just going through and living on top of a platform, it's going through and creating the integrations with a platform that we can go in and have things like auto scaling. And that is like quintessentially important to be able to go through and take advantage of AI and be able to provide things to as many groups as particularly possible.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Mike, when we're going through, give me some of the questions that have been asked in Nutanix when it comes to like AI and ML.
The questions. What was that again? Sorry about that.
Yeah, like what are customers asking you today?
Oh yeah. No, I think you put it classically, right? Like where do we start? But I think more importantly, it's around the day two operation. Hey, once I have something out there, like what you have on your screen, how do I know that it's working, right? If I get a call from a user and they're like, hey, this thing that you deployed that's AI, it's not as fast as ChatGPT. Like, what's going on here? I think that's critical, and that's something that our customers are asking for that we need to have regularly.
Yeah, it is surprising, how models react on different pieces of hardware. It is definitely one of those things. It's a completely, once you start going down the path of auto scaling and bringing more environments of things like a GPU farm, like having not just the capability to do the creation, but to be able to do the rapid set where I can bring the right hardware to the right set projects to be able to handle the experimentation part. One of the things I used to jokingly say, coming from a developer background at Red Hat, is we go through and we provide a way for developers to be able to easily get access to the resources they need, and resources fall underneath the covers where they're just worrying about claims and getting access. We're doing that to the mechanics of AI, but this is like when you have important hardware that's sitting on the underside and you have to do things like prioritization, going through and pulling together not just the mechanics of the visualization, like this has now become important. Like I need to be able to look at like what the performance and operational metrics are of like what's there. Yes. Are they down? And do I need to go through and transition to a different class of hardware to make that particularly happen? This is just going to be the day to day. For those who've never physically trained a model, you can watch it eat a server.
Alive, right? Like,
it'll eat a server. It'll eat a server alive. So I've watched it crush cores, but this is why you want to be able to go through and like have those safe frameworks to be able to particularly work within. You want to be able to have the capability to pipeline it through ops, like an MLOps part that can go through and run one set and then run another set. So these are the things that I know our customers are specifically looking for.
And then these are the day two operations I was alluding to, just so critical to understand, so you know how to troubleshoot those. Because to your point, AI is a vastly different application than anything you've deployed before. I would say the only thing that actually comes close is probably VDI, just because of the necessity to look at the infrastructure in terms of scaling out, which is critical. AI takes that to the next level. So that's awesome that those are built in to OpenShift.
Yeah. Yeah, and really what we see that customers want is like not only to go through and visualize what that hardware looks like, but where they are in the process. Like being able to look across the entire data science pipeline, because it's multiple steps. So it's not just the mechanics of training. There's things like working with synthetic data and ingest and things like that you need to be particularly considering. There's areas around real time or near real time consumption sets that customers are looking to be able to go through and pull into their environment areas. So this gets outside of what we consider the traditional OpenShift AI into like the mechanics of bringing that developer environment forward, because really that's the most important about operationalizing an AI model. Is like it's not just about training one part, but getting it access to the things that it's need, the data that it's need, and creating a full life cycle, almost like an OODA loop to be able to go through and provide interaction. So I know we've come really close to like right there, right there on time.
You guys nailed it. This isn't even, I told you I was going to come on as your Bo Peep hook. This isn't even your Bo Peep hook. We've still got a few minutes left for Q&A here. That was, guys, laugh out loud funny. I enjoyed every second of that. Matthew, your thing about the models are like fruit got me, that killed me. That's such a great takeaway. And I really, and I think I love both of you guys doing this at the end. I think creating that life cycle, and part of what I like about that is the iterative side of that as well. That I think we're in such a constantly evolving state right now, that I think there's a constant need for evolution with that life cycle. And you guys have given us a lot of really interesting steps, and kind of where to get started. I want to get into just one or two more audience questions before we let you go. I know we've got only a few minutes left. Are you guys ready to dive into a few more?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. You were getting to a lot of them as you went through. I have to say, A+ on multitasking. Not only were you having an educational conversation, you were moderating your own Q&A. So well done. We just have a few left here. I do want to make sure we've cleared this up. Do you need OpenShift AI to do AI on OpenShift?
So no. Originally, customers have been doing AI on OpenShift for a very long amount of time, and we have a vast partner ecosystem that has the capability to go through and run particularly on top of our platform. One thing that we were asked by customers to be able to go through and do is, across that open set of open source tools, can you provide us a curated approach to running AI? And really that's what OpenShift AI is we've looked across that open source landscape, and we tried to provide best of breed. But everything from doing, data meshes that are particularly on top of the platform, being able to stream in, you can go through and run something like a Watson X on top of our platform. You could, as you saw, you can go through in our catalog. You've got things like Pachyderm and the areas around Starburst, who's a partner for data meshes. We have a vast ecosystem and a catalog to be able to provide that. So you do not need OpenShift AI, but selfishly, I'm going to go through and say, if you have not experimented with it, go to developer.redhat.com. We've got an area that you can go through and start playing with, going through and having like a Jupyter Notebook as a service, and create your first set. We've got tutorials specifically within the platform to help you get started. So I would say go through and go there to try it out. It's at no cost.
Nutanix does both, which is the cool thing. So if you're running OpenShift today, we can totally manage it and help you run it on our platform. If you're running OpenShift AI, we can do that as well. So bring it on.
I like, yes, you're good. And to Matthew's point, but like, come on, try it. Go explore. That's our key takeaway. I want to talk about customization. Simon had that question about, the how to kind of make sure that you're fitting the infrastructure requirements that an individual might have. Can we talk a little bit about how customizable this is across specific organization, maybe specific industry needs?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start really quick. I know that AI workloads right now these days are one of the hardest things to size for, because to your point, there's so many iterations. And to Matthew's point, when that starts to span servers and accelerators like a GPU or whatnot across those different things, and then gauging the performance aspect of what you want to deliver, it's tough. And there's a lot of math involved these days. But I will say from Nutanix perspective, I'll let Matthew jump in just a second. We are working on a sizing mechanism initially to help with this because, again, we're the platform as a service underneath that makes this tick. We're trying to work on that. But Matthew, have you found any tools or is Red Hat doing anything on this front?
So, I'm going to go through it and pull in my inner engineer and say that it's particularly going to depend. And the reason why is because the data that you're bringing to the platform, the type of model that you're working with, is really going to go through and really align to how long it's going to take. And for those who've actually never started the process of even fine training a model, these are hours to days sometimes to be able to go through and do these things depending on the layouts and the custom data that you're bringing into the environment itself. That is why we consider things like experimentation highly important, because it's one of those parts where organizations are going to want to be able to go through and start that process to see where they can go in and provide the best amount of value, because the choice of model, the choice of hardware, the choice of GPU is going to go through and do that. And as I said and earlier in the beginning, we've gotten better to be able to go through and run very small very small models on the mechanics of a laptop, but that's not for things like training and MLOps. No. Those still require much heavier pieces of hardware to be able to go through it and do. But the iteration and the ease of iteration to be able to reuse that platform and provide it to the next team is what we see as an important part where an organization doesn't go through and not take advantage of those critical resources that they particularly have, and not having to be hit by large subscription costs when it comes to leasing hardware as a service.
So what, as a developer, I just can't grab my Mac and be like, hey, man, why can't you just run it like this? Like that's always the rub, right? So I totally feel that.
Man, I've had to remove the word just from my vocabulary recently because the number of times something starts with, well, let's just do this. Like it's never just.
No. When someone starts with that, it's not. So.
Immediately, yeah, red flags everywhere.
Just not that.
Constant. Okay, we are getting close to the end of time. I'm debating if we can sneak in one last question. Maybe I'm going to sneak in one that came in when we were talking a little bit about, I'm being a rebel here. When we were talking a little bit about OpenShift AI. And so Matthew, maybe you can answer this one for us. What is the difference between OpenShift AI and Red Hat Enterprise Linux AI?
So Red Hat Enterprise Linux AI is specifically focused on tuning LLM models. And this is very different than, consider like OpenShift AI our Swiss Army knife of being able to go through and meet a lot of different use cases. Rel AI is a curated approach to be able to do fine-tuning training of LLM models. And we utilize a tool called Instruct Lab to be able to assist it, where a customer can go through and bring data to the platform, present it within a taxonomy that they can go through and update, and then actually do contributions back to open public for public areas to be able to go through and have other people train utilizing the knowledge and skills that you've gone through and brought to your models. So it's a great way to provide democratization to model sets themselves. So it's definitely one that's focused highly on LLMs.
That was so exciting because not only was what Matthew's saying really exciting, but I got to watch Mike react in real time.
Oh, cool. What? Yeah, I didn't know.
Genuine excitement. That's my favorite, is when we get to have a webinar that is genuinely exciting to you guys as well as to everyone out there with us today. Okay, speaking of everyone out there today, we have a special hot off the presses gift for everyone in the audience today. I am going to post this link in the chat right now. And then Mike, tell us about this awesome new blog post that we're launching right now.
Awesome. They got it done. Look, I'm a transparent person, so we come to the last minute, but we are just publishing a co-opted blog post on just what you heard today between myself and Matthew on the benefit of Nutanix and Red Hat OpenShift AI. Take a look. If you want to know more, let us know. Thank you.
Perfect. I actually posted it twice because I really want to make sure everyone gets this. So there are several posts up there now. Please, Maria says thank you already. That's awesome. Yes, that literally this is just published. So you are the first crew that is getting access to this. I am so excited that you all get to read this immediately after you leave the webinar today. That's the gift from Mike and Matthew, in addition to all of the wonderful content that we've just gotten from both of your brains. So high fives all around on that. Before we wrap up and call this to you. Oh, Matthew, we nailed that.
Good job.
That's now the best part of my day. It's all downhill from here, guys. Before I let you guys go, and we clearly could do this for the rest of the day, I do want to give a couple other next steps. So we've got this blog post now that people can go check. I'm gonna talk about the handouts in just a second because we've got a lot of great handouts here for you. But I want to ask each of you for a recommendation, for kind of moving forward and getting started on this conversation, and specifically when it comes to Nutanix and Red Hat. So Mike, maybe I'll start with you, and then Matthew, you can kind of bring us on home.
I'm going to echo it really quickly, right? This combination of Nutanix and Red Hat OpenShift AI is under development on our side. To Matthew's point, I'm going to plug what he's probably going to say. If you head over to the Red Hat developer piece, you can get started on figuring out how that piece works. If you want to learn more about the Nutanix side, we do have a test drive, nutanix.com/test drive, that gets you up to speed on the platform. You can start there from our end. Matthew?
No, I don't think I specifically could say it better. Going through and getting started with AI is a journey. We understand that these are pieces that being trusted platform providers, we want to be able to go through and help you navigate. Feel free to go through and reach out to us. And we're definitely one that's interested in your journey, and we can provide you and connect you with the resources we have internally. So thank you all.
That is a great way to leave it. I hope that I get to have both of you back on here again soon. I feel like we said this several times throughout the day. There's whole webinars tucked within this webinar at every slide. So come back and hang out with us again. Matthew, Mike, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, boy, I wish the fun didn't have to end. I wish we could keep going with that conversation. I also want to say, Patrick and Maria, I see your high fives and thank yous, and I can see all the wonderful questions still rolling in. If you have a question that you didn't get in time to talk about with Mike and Matthew, please do still get that question in, because we are going to make sure that Nutanix and Red Hat get all of the questions asked, and so they'll follow up with you after we wrap. So make sure you've got those questions in, and you'll get some answers back. Now, I know that you can see that wonderful prize slide is up, which means it's time to get into our prize giveaway. But before we do that, let me give away one other awesome prize that is for everybody, because the $250, that's just for one person. The resources in your handouts tab, that's for all of you. So go spend some time clicking around in that handouts tab. There is, we've got the blog post that we put in the Q&A section. So make sure you've got that in the questions window. But there's also a press release for you in the handouts tab on this awesome partnership that we were just chatting about. Nutanix and Red Hat expand collaboration to power the next generation of virtualized and cloud native workloads. This is a really, really great summary of this incredible partnership. So make sure you've got that press release. There's a really interesting article on accelerate your application and modernization journey, how you can build and deploy modern apps at scale, very important, with Red Hat OpenShift and Nutanix database service. And then ESG technical validation, Red Hat OpenShift on Nutanix HCI. You can test drive all of these features with Nutanix, and that's what Mike was talking about right at the end there. Go and test drive. I think we talked about that with OpenShift AI as well with Matthew. Like the best way to move forward from this conversation is to just start trying things and just start learning. We talked about that life cycle. We talked about that iterative journey. This is ongoing, and so starting with opening up all these conversations, these handouts are a great way to make sure that you get to move that forward. Also, again, get those questions in before we head out. I see that. Oh, Venkat, I'm glad you enjoyed. Thanks again, Maria. This is so great. I love all the good vibes coming in from all of you out there. Well, I'll give back some of those good vibes to all of you. We're going to do our little prize giveaway here. So we have a $250 Amazon gift card. It's going to someone who is here live and present at the webinar and a little bit lucky today. And that special somebody is Nelson Louie from California. Congratulations to you, Nelson. You have won a $250 Amazon gift card. And as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap our webinar. Well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank Nutanix and Red Hat for making this webinar possible, especially to our incredible speakers, to Matthew and to Mike, for such an interesting conversation and a genuinely fun conversation. I am buzzing and full of exciting ideas and cannot wait to spend a little bit more time digging in myself. And that is, like I said, when we get to have these webinars where the speakers are clearly as excited and interested in what we're talking about as all of you are, I find that really contagious. It makes me want to jump in and explore myself. And I hope that's how you are all feeling. We started this conversation with a little bit of that poll, where are you all at in your journeys? And for a lot of us, we were in that research phase, right? We were just learning, we were just discovering what AI could do and how we might want to use that in our organizations. And this is how you start. You show up at webinars like this, you join into conversations like this, you ask questions, you read the handouts, you connect with the speakers after we wrap, and you keep evolving your understanding of what is possible, what we can all do, because everything is changing quickly right now. And this is how we stay involved and make sure that we're getting the most out of these opportunities. So I hope you're all feeling very fired up. I know I am as well. I cannot wait to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, I hope you all have absolutely beautiful ends to your day. Thanks all.